triumph without being saccharine, Kentanji, one generation from segregation to SCOTUS, pragmatism over textualism. Show me the man and I'll show you the crime. Indict ordinary over technicalities. What? Superfund regulations, founders warned against over-complex legal systems, simplifying the U.S. Code or curbing agency power. Okay, so let's go back to Sandra and John Yates. Sandra and John Yates, there was actually a quote in this book where they were saying, okay, so it goes to the Supreme Court, we get the decision that we wanted, so we won. Except what? It took fucking 8 years in order to do so, and in those 8 years' time, they can't do any more fishing, so they had to give up their fishing practice. They had to move where they were at. They had to get another fucking job. They had to do these odd and end jobs in order to make ends meet. So yeah, they won their case ultimately, but they've been punished for 8 fucking years. They've been punished even if they caught a couple more red groupers than they weren't supposed to, even if they caught some red groupers that were too small, an inch too small, even if they had a few red groupers that were an inch too small, they were drowning in legal paperwork for fucking 8 years. They had to fight this goddamn case. And how does this case go all the way to the Supreme Court without anybody just kind of saying, what the fuck are we doing here? We're trying to fuck over these fucking poor people, these regular working class folks who is doing a job. And maybe they messed up, maybe they didn't mess up. But ultimately, even though he got the verdict he was looking for, 8 years of litigation, he'd been punished. He got punished. Some people will just sue another fucking person just to make sure they get punished. Well, you got to go through the shit now, don't you? Let's see if I can find that little passage, an introduction to Law's Empire. I like how he quotes Thomas Paine wrote that only the law is king. In America, the law is king. There's a whole bunch of things here. Less than 100 years ago, all the federal government statute fit into a single volume. The No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 ran more than 600 pages. The Affordable Care Act was almost 1,000 pages. The Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021, which included a COVID-19 relief package, more than 5,000 pages. The landmark protections afforded by the Civil Rights Act of 1964, 28 pages. The Code of Federal Regulations by 2021 spanned about 200 volumes and over 188,000 pages. Federal agencies have issued about 13,000 guidance documents. Sometimes these documents appear in the Federal Register, and sometimes they don't. Here it is, you ready? John Yates was working in the couple's furniture shop. John Yates was working in the couple's furniture shop. In 2015, when he learned of the Supreme Court's decision, so this is an old decision, 9 years ago, right? And they said a lot about textualism. It was actually an interesting case. I'd like to read more about it, but by the margin of just a single vote, the court had ruled in the favor of Sandra and John Yates and the red groupers and the fucking inches and the tangible evidence and whether or not that's... By the margin of just a single vote, the court had ruled in John Yates' favor as the majority saw the Sarbanes-Oxley Act may prohibit the destruction of logbooks, spreadsheets, financial records, and other objects designed to record or preserve information, but for all its expansiveness, the law does not reach red grouper thrown overboard. It's a financial law. It's a financial law. So to stop the Enron, we're going to make sure that, hey, don't you throw any red grouper. And then doesn't that solve the fucking problem? The problem was you caught some small fish and you put the fish back into the water. I think the crime would be like a reoccurring thing that it just keeps fucking happening over and over again. I would say catch John Yates 3 times with red grouper on the bank on land. So he caught it out in the ocean and brought it on land. Catch him 3 times. And even then, was he supposed to sort it out there on the boat? Maybe? I guess so, yeah, because you'd have to throw it all. That sounds all right to me. In a sense, it was a huge victory for the Yates' family. The highest court of the land had overturned John Sarbanes-Oxley conviction. He and Sandra had won all the vindication our legal system can afford. Still, you might forgive them for seeing things differently. The family's ordeal had lasted 8 motherfucking years. They had endured proceedings before 3 courts, 13 judges. I feel good, John said after the court's decision, but you gotta look at it from my situation. I've already done the time. I've already paid the price. I've lost a lot of wages because of this. He lost at least $600,000. $600,000 he estimates in lost wages. Really, as Sandra Yates said, we lost everything we had. We lost everything we had. They've turned our lives upside down. Not only was it opportunity cost, we didn't make $600,000 that we would have made, but we had to do all this crap dumb jobs and we lost everything we had. John hasn't been back on a commercial fishing boat since the conviction. The couple now lives in a triple wide trailer and they depend on Social Security. They depend on Social Security income and the extra jobs that Sandra manages. Meanwhile, Sandra estimates that taxpayers spent as much as $11 million prosecuting the case. $11 million? Is that really that fucking important? Are Americans rallying and saying, yeah, we need to take Sandra and John Yates down? I don't want that. I don't want Sandra and John Yates to go down because of fucking red grouper and the fucking mismanagement and the goddamn, the magician with the bunny rabbit and then the braids. What are we talking about with hair braiding? You're not allowed to braid your hair in a certain way. Somehow that's a federal crime too. And what happened to the federal officials who pursued John and Sandra Yates for all those years? After complaints emerged of heavy-handed and unfair enforcement against other fishermen like John, the Inspector General of the Department of Commerce had launched an internal investigation. His final report dryly concluded that the agency's enforcement officials had created a highly charged regulatory climate and dysfunctional relationship between the agency and the fishing industry. But he added the investigation hadn't been easy. It seems that a key enforcement official had destroyed many of his files in the middle of the investigation. Oh, shit. When they were investigating, who are they investigating? Department of Commerce. When they're investigating the Department of Commerce, I mean, my God, they deleted all those emails. When the Bush administration deleted a shit ton of emails, all that talk about Hillary's server. But he's saying they tried to investigate the Department of Commerce. They went ahead and destroyed evidence. You're not allowed to destroy documents, records, or other tangible objects. And the whole thing was, what is a tangible object? If you put it in that group, tangible object, does it mean red grouper? Or does it just mean like records and financial documents and shit like that? So they had a shredding party. They tampered with evidence. They outright fucking destroyed documents and records. They had tampering with evidence like motherfuckers. So not only are they being petty and dumb, they're also goddamn hypocrites. They're breaking the very fucking law that they are saying other people are breaking. There's no public record of any criminal charges being brought against anybody for destroying any of those tangible objects. In 2012, Sandra said this: "We were raising 2 grandchildren. We are simple people. The